So I just wanted to share some tips for staying sane throughout the whole coronavirus pandemic situation and staying at home all the time. We are into our second month of this situation in the US, and obviously some of the techniques that I've been using have evolved throughout this whole month, and I wanted to share them with you all. I know that we have different circumstances, but I just wanted to kind of share what's worked for me, and I think some of these can be universally helpful insofar as we experience the human condition together. So one of the ways of coping that's helped me a lot has been throwing myself into an already pre-existing hobby that I'm passionate about, which is cooking. I really love cooking. It's so tangible. The consequences are so concrete. It's something that you can just experience on your own. It's something you can share with other people. If you live with someone or another individual, right, it can be really helpful to share your creation with them or just solely with yourself. And it's a creative outlet, so you can experiment a lot. You can enjoy the smell of it. It's a very sensory experience. Obviously, you can enjoy the taste of it. Now, cooking can be stressful with respect to grocery shopping, but something that I keep in mind is that we have to be flexible with what we want to cook because stores are out of things constantly. And I think as someone who cooks vegetarian and who doesn't cook with dairy, I'm used to substituting things constantly and trying to find different ways of achieving a similar flavor or achieving a similar consistency or texture. So I try to think of it as a welcome challenge. Also, something that I have to do for my sanity is limiting my social media intake and my news intake. I find that I tend to feel the worst when I spend more time on social media and when I spend more time watching the news, or not watching the news, but looking at news articles and listening to some of the news podcasts, just because it feels so terrible what's happening. You hear about people dying constantly, and then the wealth inequality is even more exposed, and it feels really frustrating because you want to change things. But obviously, sitting at home and feeling depressed about it isn't really going to help. It's not going to help you. It's not really going to help anyone else. I think it's really hard when you're a compassionate person. You really want to help other people and you want to make the world a better place. But how do you do that in these circumstances? So obviously we have to cope. We have to survive right now. And I have deleted my Facebook app because it's really easy to see what everyone's posting because people have more time to post now. And it's really easy to just kind of get sucked in and be on Facebook for 30 minutes and then you feel terrible about life. Or on Instagram, people might be posting things that can depress you, or you might see that someone has thousands of likes and then you're just barely scraping by. And that's a situation even without the coronavirus, but obviously social media can be really toxic. So definitely, watch yourself. I don't look at Facebook on the weekends. I barely look at Instagram on the weekends because I just want to stay sane. I also don't look at the news on the weekends. I want to know everything, but at the same time, I need to manage my mental health. Another tactic for me or tip for me has been communicating with other people, reaching out to people I care about, making sure they're okay. I have a tendency to be scared to reach out sometimes because I don't want to be rejected or I don't want people to ignore my text, but I think that just showing people that you care about them, especially right now, I think that the consequences of it outweigh the risks of it in terms of someone even just realizing that you care about them, even if they don't respond. And I think you'll see that most of the time people will respond because people are kind of forced to be in more of an emotional kind of introspection. Also, be grateful for what you do have. I know it's hard. It's okay to feel sad about things, even if you do have, health and your job and everything, but try to also remember and put things into perspective that things can change constantly. So try to be grateful for your health and whatever it is that you do have these days. Also, try to have open discussions with people that you live with. Partners, friends, roommates, etc. I live with my partner and we have very different ways of coping with the situation where he's a lot more relaxed about things. He's a lot more type B and just kind of chill about things, and that's not me at all. I'm a lot more of an anxious person and I like to plan things, and so we've definitely had a lot of conversations this past month about how we both can try to act in ways that are conducive for each other's growth. Also, we've established rules and boundaries so that way we can be very clear about how we're coping with things or both of our expectations. And I think that's really crucial. So really open communication, establishing rules and boundaries if you do live with another person. Also, something that's helped me is just watching light things. So for me, watching lighter TV shows, watching lighter movies. There are so many amazing TV shows and films out there that are really heavy, and most of the time I watch heavy things, but right now I just cannot handle that. So don't beat yourself up for it not being an amazing art house cinema film that you're watching, or don't beat yourself up just because, you know, it's not the most provocative thing. It's okay. Try not to be a critic to yourself all the time, or a critic of yourself all the time. Also, recognize that things aren't going to be perfect with how you produce things. I think we have a tendency to put a lot of pressure on ourselves to try to be super productive. Like, for example, I don't have to commute to work anymore. I don't have to drive to work anymore. So I think, oh, well, I should be writing a novel with this time, or creating, you know, some other project, or becoming amazing at food photography or whatever. And the thing that I think we forget sometimes is that this isn't just, you know, time off from work or time off from life or winter break or something, right? We're living through a pandemic, which is traumatic for everyone involved, even though there's differing degrees of trauma here. But I think that we're all feeling down to some degree, so it's okay to acknowledge that and say, you know what? I'm not going to be super productive. I may not write a novel right now. I may not write a billion blog posts, and that's okay. I'm just trying to survive and cope the best way I can while still doing things that are fulfilling to me. So I hope that this was helpful. And I know that the situation is changing constantly, so I'm curious to see kind of how these tips evolve through the next few months.